Hey guys, what is going on? Today we are looking at the Nightfae, Warrior Nightfae, for PvP generally. I haven't actually forgot to unlock all the renown that I need on this, but ultimately we kind of all know, what the abilities do. But let's kind of talk about where Nightfae is at the moment and the current issues on 9.0. So I feel like Nightfae at the start of Shadowlands was, for Warrior, a really viable and cool option. The biggest thing was that, it provided an alternative playstyle to the Kyrian. It wasn't as strong as Kyrian. I feel like everyone agreed on that. But a lot of people felt like it was, maybe in the top, I'd say two, top two, relative to the rest of them. And oh shit, I can't actually get this quest, but I've got to go buy the other stuff right now. But I'll just kind of talk while we do that. A lot of people felt like Nightfae was really viable. Ancient Aftershock, obviously, dealing a considerable amount of damage at the start of the expansion. I remember I played Nightfae on my second warrior for quite a long time. It was maybe uh, one of the first things I was drawn to was the fact that Ancient Aftershock wouldn't share a stun DR, right? So you could stun somebody, then Ancient Aftershock them, and that whole go would be completely non-DR'd. Well, the Stormbolt would DR with whatever other stun you have, but that go, like, you don't have two DRs going on there, and you could hit multiple people and they'd be knocked down as well. Which, for anyone who doesn't know, there's some, like, I think a short period of time where you have to go and kind of pick yourself back up, which does impact, the time in which you have someone locked down and you can kind of have a go on them, right? So ultimately, I think, like, the other thing was the soul shape, right? Just remembering that the soul shape was quite strong. It was another gap closer, which you could use to kite and evade enemies, or you could use it to chase, other warlocks and other classes. Like, a lot of classes that were really slippery, like rogues, mages, warlocks, um, druids were all playing Nightfae at the time. A lot of them have changed now to different ones, notably Necrolord. But Soul Shape was an excellent counter to Soul Shape. You could Soul Shape on top of someone, stay there and, like, keep your uptime so you're not getting kited through that period. You could Soul Shape backwards to kind of get out of line of sight really easily and just be annoying to get to. All this kind of good stuff. But ultimately, as the season went on, I think a lot of people just realized, well, everything that Nightfae can do, Kyrian can kind of do better. And Kyrian is a bit tankier. It has better potency conduits, like the effect Pelagos, and Let Go of the Past was notably stronger than a lot of the stuff that Nightfae had. Uh, Warriors really didn't ever use the pod. It wasn't too useful in a lot of the comps you're playing because you'd be playing like Ret Warrior, the pod would get procced, and that's it. There's not too much else there to see. So I think as time went on, Necrolord got buffed. Nightfae sort of stayed the same, and Nightfae's still excellent in PvE for tanks, but still pretty bad now. It's probably the worst Covenant in retail WoW at the moment, currently 9.0. So, what am I looking forward to, or what am I thinking about that might make Nightfae more attractive in 9.1? So, in 9.1, obviously, we have this new legendary. There's new legendaries for each conduit, sorry, each whatever they're called, covenant. And the Nightfae one is essentially increased damage, like the duration's longer, which is more relevant for PvE because sure, you can have the thing down for 15 seconds, but people just move away and you can't really do anything else after that. Um, oh, I still can't soulbind to this guy. It's really frustrating because I wanted to test it out, but I think it's gonna make me do the quests or something, man. We'll see if we can work it out. If not, we'll just pull to Wowhead to look at the new talents, the new soulbinds. But yeah, ultimately, really, like, interesting playstyle and ability. Um, that I think what I'm looking forward to in the legendary is potentially the stacking damage. If the stacking damage is sufficient, we're going to see some considerable extra damage coming out of the ability, and I think we can sort of pair it. So let's just look at what the base damage looks like. If I throw this down, it's doing roughly you have this nature's dummy. I think it's not doing too much damage though, but you see this dot is stacking up, which ends up being about 1200. Nothing too impressive here, um, especially considering the fact that you're taking up a legendary spot with this. I honestly feel like it's probably better just to stick with um, the old, what's it called, Battle Lord's Charm for Nightfae, because the stacking damage just wasn't too interesting. I don't know if that's because it's on a dummy or something. Maybe if I do it on one of these weaker dummies, I don't know if there's any difference. Um, it'd be more interesting, but yeah, ultimately, legendaries a bit meh. I think there's better legendaries to use as Nightfae. You just don't need the duration because you're not going to be hitting something like nobody's going to stay in your pool of Nightfae goo for 15 seconds straight, right? Ultimately, the maximum amount of time you can get them is probably the knockdown. You could slow them and maybe stun them in it as well, right? So that's one way you can stack the damage up a bit higher. But even then, you're committing a lot to lose a legendary for that. If we look at the other legendaries that you could get, as Nightfae, obviously, you have your like typical unhinged battle lord, these types of things. I think honestly, when you compare it to any of these other ones, so Glory is going to be forecasted for the Necrolord video. Not that good unless you can really make use of this extra rage you get from the banner, which we're going to test. The Elijah Might, insane legendary, Sinful Surge. Still, like, I think this might be very strong. But when you compare it to something like this, like, hypothetically, you get this down, you throw it down, it does a decent amount of burst, and then you can stun them in it afterwards. And, like, you're probably going to get to about 3 stacks maximum. But even then, probably not too much more than that, which is kind of a shame, ultimately. Yeah, I think the legendary could have, like, I'm sure it's great for protection or PvE mythic keys in general. Just having that down for an extra 5 seconds will definitely be strong as hell. But right now, for PvP, Nightfae, legendary wise, has not had a considerable improvement. So we're going to jump onto Wowhead now and then look at the soulbinds and have a chat about those. Okay, boys, looking at the new Soulbind traits for 9.1, Naya, right? This is the main one that I think most warriors were playing on, which I don't think has updated the Soulbind calculator yet, but let's look at the two abilities. So Cold Shot, which means you go with the Endurance path. When you critically strike, you gain 20% movement speed. I mean, this is probably not bad. Like, it means that you kind of have a base increased movement speed because likely you're going to crit with something um, during your go, or just generally. You're going to have base increase 20% movement speed every 5 seconds. I don't think this is bad. I don't think this will have too much of an impact, though. I feel like you're always in slows and stuff. And given some of the new Covenant changes, like it seems like a lot of things already have a slows. So not super interesting. Survivor's Rally, when you fall below 20%, 50% health, you regain 20% health over 10 seconds and receive 5% additional healing from other spells and abilities. This is pretty good. Like it's pretty good for a talent, like a trait. That extra percentage of health, like especially if you go D stance, ignore pain, could be really useful. And it's only a minute cooldown, so you should have it a lot. Um, Given that a lot of classes now have Immortal Strike, I don't know how impactful this will be, but it could make a general impact and be somewhat okay. Sort of similar to like the Necro Lord ability. And then gaining a stack of redirected anima from Grove Invigoration heals up to 5 nearby allies for 2% of their health. If any of the allies are of another covenant, their redirected anima's mastery maximum health effects are increased by 50% for 5 seconds. This could be pretty strong, actually. I feel like it's pretty easy to get stacks of this because when you use your ability, you get a considerable amount of um, I guess, what's it called? Stacks, right? I think you get like 10 or 15 stacks, and then when you're just playing, you get base increases to it. So I think this has some promise, but probably not enough to outweigh the fact that the new um, legendary, or there's no real impact to legendaries, and the rest of the other covenants are getting something sort of interesting. So let's look at Dreamweaver now. Dreamweaver is, I think this is the pod one. Yeah, this is the one that you go into a pod. Um, dealing damage or heal. This is a new big talent. Dealing damage or healing a target grants you 1% increased damage, up to 3%, whatever. When you take damage below 80% health, you gain a shield for 30% of the damage amount, lasting 30 seconds. This is okay. I think this is actually quite good. Um, like especially against like a mage, like rogue mage or something, where you're going to get bursted down from 80 really quickly and 30% of the damage amount. I don't know. This is like kind of confusing because it says damage amount here, but it's maximum health on the tooltip. I'm going to assume it's maximum health because damage amount doesn't really make sense, but that could be like a 12k shield for 12 seconds. Um, and it occurs every minute. I feel like you could play around this pretty easily though. It's pretty easy to get someone below 80% health and then just proc it and then do their go. But not bad. Not bad general survivability, especially at the start of a game. Um, so, Hunt Captain. So, let's look at this. When damaging an enemy, you gain 3% leech. Whatever. Not that interesting. After interrupting or disorienting an enemy, they deal 5% less damage for 5 seconds. This is okay. It's not bad. Like, over time, I think this would probably, like, stack up to be a considerable amount of decrease in damage. But if you're interrupting them anyway, like, let's think about when this is going to be useful. Firstly, against healers, like the majority of times you kick a heal, like you don't really care about this decreased damage. If you're kicking something like a warlock, you kick Chaos Bolt, well, they're already not going to be doing their main damage ability for like a fair chunk of time. And then, you know, they're going to, like, by the time your kick ends, like, they're going to be casting Chaos Bolt again, which is probably the thing you want less damage on. And then, you know where this goes. Like, then your damage, this damage decrease is not really that relevant. But maybe useful against, like, boomkins or, like, mages and stuff. I'm not 100% sure. If you kick a poly, I guess they can't combust or do fire damage as easily. When your damage or healing is enhanced by Wild Hunt tactics, gain Wild Hunt Stratagem for 1 minute. The next time you damage an enemy who's below 35%, you deal essentially 5% more damage for 10 seconds with, imagine, a minute cooldown. Let's look at this conduit here. Wild Hunt tactics, I think, is this thing, right? So essentially when you damage someone above 75%, yeah, okay, that makes sense. This is not bad, I guess. Like, this isn't a bad covenant now, I guess. With that ability, you do a bit more damage to them. You have some utility there. I think the rest of these are still pretty lackluster. So ultimately, I'm like not really feeling too confident about Nightfae unless there's some big buffs added to it. I think that it kind of needs a bit of a rework to his legend, like to this for PvP at least. This is a hard thing, right? Because this is a sick legendary, sick covenant ability for PvE, especially keys and as protection as keys. Because you throw this down and you're literally interrupting everyone for like 15 seconds. Nuts. You're gaining rage as well because mythic plus targets don't move, so that's pretty straightforward. However, the issue is that you can't like just pull this into PvP and say, okay, let's change it to be designed for PvP, because then all the PvE guys are going to say, well, look, there was nothing wrong with it. Why are you changing this? Um, so it's a bit different to Necrolord, where Necrolord literally was not viable for PvE or PvP. It was just crap. So I don't know how they're going to bounce Nightfae. Maybe they need to fix this legendary to be a bit more interesting. But I'm sure that legendary is interesting if you're into PvE. So Nightfae is just in a really awkward spot. I'm probably going to feel like this isn't moving at all from its lowest spot for PvP. I'm happy to be proven wrong. If there's people who really feel like I've missed something in this video, please let me know. big thanks to all the Patreons, YouTube subscribers, Twitch followers, Twitch subs, everyone like that. Always appreciate your support, and we're going to go and stream a shit ton in 9.1 and leading up to that as well. Playing a lot more different classes, a lot of variety there too. So please follow the Twitch if you're interested in watching stuff like that. And if you're interested in coaching and stuff like that, you want to get better before 9.1, check out the Patreon in the description below. All right, guys, next video will be on the one I think most people are interested in, which is Vente.